She arrived at the station full of hope, carrying nothing but a trunk of dreams and letters she had poured her heart into for months. But the moment he saw her, the man she thought would be her future recoiled in shock because of the color of her skin. 3 weeks of travel, 6 months of heartfelt letters, a promise of love, and it all shattered in an instant. But just when humiliation seemed unstoppable, a millionaire farmer appeared, seeing what no one else could. The woman he knew was perfect, no matter what anyone else said. This is the story of rejection, courage, and a destiny rewritten by the strength of a woman who refused to be defined by the color of her skin. The train hissed as it slowed into Riverbrook Station, its steam drifting like ghosts above the platform. Amara Wilson stepped out, smoothing the little blue hat she had bought just for today, a hopeful touch for a hopeful new life. She held her letter bundle close, the edges soft from months of being reread. And then she heard it. You're Amara Wilson. The man standing in front of her, Harold Pierce, looked as if someone had punched the air out of his lungs. His face drained of color, and the flowers he held drooped in his trembling hand. I'm sorry, he stammered, stepping back as though her presence burned him. This won't work. You didn't tell me you were. You know. Amara raised an eyebrow. Black, she finished for him, her voice steady, though her heart thudded painfully. You never asked. 6 months of letters. 6 months of promises, of heartfelt confessions, of a lonely widower seeking comfort and companionship. He had told her he wanted kindness, intellect, warmth. Not once had he mentioned a color requirement. Yet here he was, recoiling as if she were a mistake delivered by the wrong train. Passengers slowed, eyes turned. A black woman being rejected by a white man. Nothing spread faster than humiliation in a small town. I imagined something different, Harold muttered, avoiding her eyes. The community here is traditional. I can't bring someone like you into my life. People will talk. My business, and that's what matters to you. She asked quietly. Your reputation. He swallowed hard. I can pay for your return ticket, or a hotel for a few nights. I'm sure you understand. Amara felt a heat rise in her chest, not shame, but anger, controlled, sharp, cold. I spent everything I had to come here, she said. I have nowhere to return to. Harold fumbled in his pocket and pulled out some half-crushed bills. Take this, and is that your solution, Pierce? A deep voice boomed from behind him. The crowd stirred as a tall man stepped forward, broad-shouldered, suntanned, dressed in simple clothes that somehow looked expensive simply because confidence draped over him like a tailored suit. Alexander Maxwell. Everyone at the station recognized him, not just a farmer. The farmer. The quiet, powerful man who owned nearly half the cultivated land in the region. Harold stiffened. Maxwell, this is none of your business. It becomes my business, Alexander replied, stepping closer. When I see a man I've known for 15 years acting like a frightened child. His gaze then softened as he turned to Amara. Miss Wilson, she answered, surprised by the sudden shift in tone. Miss Wilson, he said warmly, I have a home on the outskirts of town. Guest rooms, quiet, safe. If you need a place to stay while deciding your next step, you're welcome there. Harold nearly choked. Maxwell, you can't bring her to your estate. What will people say? Alexander's smile sharpened into something cold and dangerous. The same people who come to me for loans, harvest equipment, and grazing rights. I'm sure they'll find the right words. Harold paled. Amara looked between the two men, suspicion flickering. Kindness from strangers often came with strings. But Alexander's expression held no calculation, only genuine concern, and besides, she truly had nowhere else to go. Thank you, she whispered. He nodded. Shall we? As they left the station, neither Harold nor the watching crowd had the slightest idea that Amara carried more than a trunk of clothes and crushed dreams. She also carried a secret. A secret wrapped in old documents hidden under a false wooden panel. A secret capable of turning Riverbrook upside down. Alexander's estate was nothing like the modest farm he had mentioned. It was a sprawling Victorian manor surrounded by rolling hills, orchards, and pasture fields dotted with horses. The kind of place that whispered generational wealth without ever raising its voice. Mrs. Foster, the housekeeper, greeted Amara with polite warmth and, to Amara's surprise, no flicker of judgment. The blue room is ready, she said. Best light, best view. After hours of humiliation, the gentle respect nearly brought tears to Amara's eyes. Dinner was served in a grand dining room lit by soft candlelight. Alexander told his own story, son of a wealthy northern banker and a schoolteacher heavily involved in post-war abolition efforts. He spoke of relocating to Riverbrook, of clashing values, of refusing to bow to the town's unspoken color lines. "And you, Miss Wilson?" he asked finally. Amara hesitated. "I taught literature and history at a school for girls of color in Boston, until it closed. I needed a new beginning." What she did not say was that her grandfather, a lifelong butler for a wealthy Southern family, had left her a small inheritance. Gold coins, a few heirlooms, and documents. Old, delicate papers that hinted at something massive: land rights. Riverbrook land rights. But for now, she kept that detail to herself. The days that followed were quiet, almost peaceful. Alexander didn't hover or pry, he simply offered space. The mansion's private library became her refuge. Shelves of history, town records, legal documents, some older than the town itself. She read everything, but not for pleasure. She was searching, calculating, confirming. And slowly, pieces of a buried truth started fitting together. 1 week later, everyone in town knew about the colored woman living in Maxwell's house. Curious neighbors suddenly became frequent visitors. Merchants' wives, local families, even the Reverend, all polite, all pretending their motives weren't dripping with gossip. "You see," Alexander said one afternoon, "you haven't set foot in town, and you're already its most talked about resident." Amara sipped her tea with a bitter smile. "I've been stared at all my life, Mr. Maxwell. The only difference now is the china cup." Then came the visit she knew would happen. Harold Pierce arrived unannounced, hat crushed between his hands. "Miss Wilson," he greeted, avoiding her eyes. "I came to check if you're settling in." "How thoughtful," she replied, her tone icy. Harold cleared his throat. "The community is concerned. A woman of your background staying with an unmarried man is improper." "Because I'm black?" she asked. He flinched. Alexander's voice dropped to a dangerous low. "Finish that sentence, Pierce." Harold coughed, flustered. "The church committee is suggesting arrangements to help Miss Wilson return to Boston." Amara smiled, serene, powerful. "I'm afraid that won't be necessary," she said. "I'm staying in Riverbrook indefinitely." Harold froze. "Impossible. You have no job." "No family." "I do now," she replied calmly. "Mr. Maxwell offered me a position librarian of his estate." Harold nearly dropped his hat. "Librarian, that library?" "Yes," she said. "The one filled with historical records." And Harold went pale for a reason even he didn't yet understand. Because the deeper Amara read, the more dangerous the truth became. Riverbrook was built on stolen land. Land that rightfully belonged to her own bloodline. And she was getting ready to expose everything. The sky had deepened into shades of rust and blue by the time the guests sat down for dinner. The long wooden table stretched across the veranda, candles flickering in the soft breeze. Kalen took his place, quiet and observant as always. Naomi sat beside him, her fingers still trembling from the insults earlier that evening. She kept her gaze low, hoping the shadows would hide the redness in her eyes. Across the table, Mrs. Harrington whispered loudly to her sister, ensuring everyone could hear. "Some people simply do not belong in gatherings like this." Her sister nodded, the two of them casting smug glances in Naomi's direction. Callan's jaw tightened, but Naomi gently touched his hand beneath the table, a silent plea not to create a scene. She had endured far worse in life. Tonight would not break her. Just as dessert was being served, the mood shifted unexpectedly. Mr. Harrington, always dramatic, raised his glass and announced, "Everyone knows Kalen is too busy running his farm to find a proper wife. So, I tried to help him by arranging a mail-order bride." Laughter erupted. Pointed, mocking, cruel. Naomi froze. Every pair of eyes swung toward her. Mrs. Harrington leaned forward with a smirk. "And would you look at that, this one arrived. Shame the color wasn't stated on the order form." Naomi felt the world tilt. The blood drained from her face. She wanted to disappear into the earth. That was the moment Kalen rose to his feet slowly, deliberately. The room fell silent. "I didn't order Naomi," he said, his voice low but commanding. "I wrote to her because I saw her heart in her letters, her strength, her honesty, her courage." His eyes swept across the table, cold as steel. "And none of you know anything about her." Mrs. Harrington scoffed. Kaylin, she's beneath you. Look at her. Kaylin stepped closer to Naomi, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. I am looking, he said. And she is the most beautiful woman at this table. Gasps traveled around the room. Naomi's breath caught. Tears threatening again, but this time for a different reason. Mrs. Harrington's voice turned sharp. So, you're truly considering marrying her? Kaylin didn't blink. I'm not considering. I'm certain. Naomi's heart thudded painfully. She stared at him, stunned, unable to understand how he could defend her so fiercely in front of people who judged her so harshly. But Kaylin wasn't finished. You think her color makes her less, he said, raising his voice. Her color is strength. Her roots are strength. She survived things none of you could. And she still carries more grace than all of you combined. A murmur rippled through the guests. Some lowered their heads, ashamed, others burned with resentment. Mrs. Harrington tried one last attack. This is madness, Kaylin. People will talk. Kaylin gave a humorless smile. Then let them talk. I'm done living by your standards. He took Naomi's hand, lacing his fingers through hers. For the first time that evening, Naomi didn't hide them. Callan's voice softened as he leaned closer to her. Come with me. You don't owe anyone here a single moment more. Naomi rose slowly. Her knees trembled, not from fear anymore but from a powerful, overwhelming realization. She had finally found someone who saw her as a woman worthy of love, not as an outsider. The two of them walked away from the table, past the stunned guests, past the candles, past the whispers. Kaylin guided her toward the quiet moonlit fields, where the world felt wide and welcoming. Naomi, he said gently when they were alone, I didn't defend you because I felt obligated. I defended you because I care about you, more than I've cared for anyone. Naomi blinked, confused. But why me? After everything you just risked your reputation, your standing. He shook his head. None of that matters. You matter. Her breath caught. Kaylin, I don't understand what I did to deserve this. You existed, he said simply. And that is enough. For a long moment, she didn't know whether to cry or smile. So she did both. And for the first time since arriving at that farm, she didn't feel like an outsider. She felt like she belonged. The next morning, soft golden sunlight spilled through Naomi's window. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the night before. Callan's words, his courage, the way he held her hand as if she was the only woman in the world. It all felt unreal. Downstairs, she heard footsteps, slow, heavy, familiar. Naomi wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and stepped outside. Kaylin stood by the old wooden fence, his hat tipped back, watching the sunrise stretch across his fields. The breeze carried the scent of earth and wild flowers, peaceful and warm. He glanced at her, a gentle smile forming. You rested? Naomi nodded. I tried. My thoughts kept me awake. Kaylin chuckled softly. Mine too. They stood quietly for a moment, the world still and calm around them. But Naomi's heart was restless. She finally turned to him. Kaylin, you defended me when everyone turned against me. No one has ever done that. Not even in my own home. But I need to know. What happens now? Last night wasn't easy for you. Kaylin sighed, leaning against the fence. You're right. People will talk. Some will judge. Some will stay away. But Naomi, he met her eyes. I choose you. Not because it's easy. Because it's right. Naomi blinked as tears slipped down her cheeks. I came here expecting rejection. Maybe even humiliation. I never imagined a stranger would treat me with more kindness than anyone I've known. Kaylin stepped closer, brushing a tear from her cheek with the back of his fingers. You're not a stranger to me. Your letters, your stories, your strength, they all felt familiar long before you arrived. Naomi smiled faintly. I wrote those letters hoping someone would see me for who I am, not just what I look like. I did, Kaylin whispered. I always did. The moment felt fragile, tender, like a new beginning waiting to unfold. Just then, footsteps crunched behind them. Mrs. Harrington. Naomi stiffened. Kaylin immediately shifted closer, protective as ever, but Mrs. Harrington looked different. Her chin lowered, her eyes softer, not sharp and cold like the night before. She approached slowly, hesitating. Kaylin. Naomi, she began, voice unusually quiet. I owe you both an apology. Naomi's breath caught. She hadn't expected that, not from this woman. Mrs. Harrington clasped her hands tightly. What I said last night was cruel and wrong. I let my own prejudice speak louder than my decency. I'm ashamed of how I behaved. Naomi exchanged a surprised glance with Cale and Mrs. Harrington continued. When I saw how you stood up for her, how you looked at her, It made me realize how small my thinking was. Naomi, you showed more dignity than any of us at that table. Naomi swallowed hard. Thank you, she whispered. Unsure how else to respond. Mrs. Harrington nodded. And if you decide to marry Kalen, I hope you'll allow me the chance to make things right. She walked away before either of them could answer, leaving them stunned. Naomi turned to Kalen. Why do I feel like everything is changing so fast? Kalen took both her hands in his, because sometimes life waits years to show you kindness, then gives it all at once. Naomi looked out at the endless fields stretching into the horizon. She had arrived here as a rejected bride and wanted, judged, dismissed for the color of her skin. But somehow, this land, this man, had rewritten her destiny. Kalen, she whispered, her voice trembling. I want to stay. He inhaled sharply. You mean, I want to build a life here, with you? If you'll have me. A slow, stunned smile spread across his face. Naomi, I've been hoping you'd say that since the day your first letter arrived. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, warm, steady, like she finally belonged somewhere she didn't have to fight for her worth. Above them, the morning sun rose higher, glowing gold against the earth like a blessing over something new and beautiful beginning. And in that quiet embrace, on that peaceful farm, Naomi realized something she had never known before. She wasn't just chosen. She wasn't just defended. She was loved. Not for her color, not for her past, but simply for who she was. And for the first time in her life, that was enough. As Naomi stepped into her new life, loved, accepted, and finally seeing for who she truly was, her story became a reminder that real love has no color. And real courage is choosing someone even when the world tells you not to. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, because more powerful stories like this are coming your way. Thank you for watching. And remember, kindness can change destinies.